You know, the people of Israel, they endured hardship in the slave pits of Egypt. There they had been toiling away in bitter fruitlessness. They were enslaved in an idolatrous nation that oppressed not just the Israelites, but their own people. In Egypt, there were many gods that dominated the spiritual life of the land. And here, with idolatry, is where oppression begins. God himself moved against the gods of Egypt that the people of Israel might go free. You see, wherever there is idolatry, then oppression will follow. One of the lessons of Scripture is to speak to us about that very truth. Idolatry breeds oppression. And wherever idolatry arises, slavery will soon follow. You see, idolatry was the real reason that Israel was in captivity. That wherever there is idolatry, there will be bondage, slavery, tyranny. Exodus chapter 1, verse 14 tells us that the people of Israel, that they toiled in bitter slavery, that the bondage was very difficult. They had no self-determination. Nothing about slavery is desirable. Others decide what your life will be like, what you will do, where you will live. Your resources are not your own. You reap while others consume. You build what others will possess. There is nothing truly that you can call your own in slavery, in oppression. And that oppression, that slavery, comes out of idolatry. One of the lessons that we find throughout Scripture is that where there is idolatry, then there will be a corresponding loss of freedom throughout human history. You will find that there are few, if any, benevolent, idolatrous societies. Tyranny follows idolatry, and oppression will be imposed, and slavery will result. Idolatrous societies diminish the value of human life, and they diminish the value of the life of the many, while exalting the few with a fascination on personality and material gain. A nation will lose its national freedom when they first lose their spiritual freedom. The people, that is the people of Israel, the people were slaves due to the idolatry of the land. The very things that the Egyptians worshipped, and in this state of slavery that the people of Israel existed in, that relationship that they had had, that knowledge that they had had about the God of the patriarchs, began to diminish, began to fade. But you see, the great God, He was not done with His people Israel. He was not done with them, and He remembered His word to the patriarchs. God would intervene in the life of the people of Israel, and He would set them free. The Lord saw the affliction of the people. In Exodus 3, verse 7, we read that the Lord said, and He is speaking to Moses, I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and I have heard the cry by reason of their taskmasters, for I know their sorrows. I am come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of the land to a good land and a large land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to a place of the Canaanites and Hittites and the Amorites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and to the Jebusites. Now therefore, behold, the cry of Israel is come up to me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppress them. God does this, that is, sets Israel free by destroying the very objects of the Egyptians that they worshipped. God demonstrates to Egypt and to all of us for all time and eternity that He is God, and that He alone is God. And the plagues that God poured out upon the Egyptians were poured out upon the very things that they worshipped, that they venerated. You see, God was showing just who is God and who is not God. That He is God above all things. That He is supreme. After God calls and reveals Himself to Moses, He sends him to Pharaoh. And God lifts His hand through Moses, and He begins to strike the very gods of Egypt with the Nile River. The Nile River was not just venerated as a god by the Egyptians, it was the very life's blood of the Egyptian economy. If He struck the river, He would strike the very foundation of the economic power of Egypt. God is God, not a flowing body of water such as the Nile or any other objects that humanity might venerate. Because humanity has this propensity to worship and venerate the creation rather than the Creator. You can read that in Romans chapter 1, verse 25. As well, humanity also has this propensity for worshiping anything that mesmerizes them, anything that entices them, anything that excites them. You can read that in Colossians 3, verse 5. This idolatry of the creation and the desires of the carnal nature enslave those that worship them. That if you worship anything other than the great God, you will find yourself in bondage. Whether you worship an idol of gold or silver, materialism, whether it is fame, fortune, a title, a position, a personality, acclamation, whatever it is that we may worship, whether it be materialism or our own self-desires, those things will turn us into their slaves. When we make idols of objects, then we become slaves. And those objects will become cruel taskmasters, demanding our time, our resources, our adorations. That is, our whole lives will become built around those things that we worship, whatever they might be. Whether it's a position, whether it's another person, whether it is acclamation and appreciation, whatever it is that we put before the great God, those things will enslave us. We will lose our freedom. You see, when we lose our freedom personally, it only demonstrates that we have lost our freedom spiritually. Whatever it is our idol is, whether it's appetites or materialism, a personality, whatever it is will enslave us and turn us into slaves as surely as the people of Israel were enslaved. We can read of the plagues upon Egypt. That is God showing who is God and who is not God. We can read about those in Exodus chapters 7 to 12. God is showing that He is God and only He deserves our worship. Not our appetites, not materialism, not a position, not another person, no one, no personality, no celebrity, no politician, nowhere, anywhere. Is there anyone that deserves our adoration and our acclaim? Anything that we look to other than the great God will enslave us, and will enslave us with cruelty. God, after He extends His plagues upon the gods of Egypt, He leads them to the Red Sea. And here at the Red Sea, those things, the Egyptians, they which pursued them, that would enslave them again, Pharaoh